It's so beautiful to be in your energy and just to feel our energies meeting in the space. Like I could almost feel just us both going, okay, now here's the space. Here's who we're serving.
Yeah.
And let's quickly calibrate to that. Would you
Yeah.
agree that that's what
Yeah,
that pause
absolutely.
was?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like a landing of, okay, here we are with full awareness of everyone who's going to be watching this and listening in.
And I would love to, it's interesting that this is where the conversation is starting, but almost to bring more words to that for those who are listening. What is that service to the world? What is that being present to the moment? And I'm just going to throw words out there and we can weave from there. And almost like allowing love to flow through in the
Mm.
flavor that it flows through. And so I want to pass it over to you, and maybe you can just weave some words into that.
Hmm. Well, I think what we tend to do in our life is the mind is what guides us. And so you're brushing your teeth and you're either focusing on brushing your teeth or you're thinking about something else while you're brushing your teeth, or you're watching the sunset and you're either really immersed in the sunset and your whole body and heart and soul is just touched deeply, like there's almost this merging with the sunset. It's you're awestruck, it's beautiful. Or you're watching the sunset whilst thinking about something else. And I think that basically because of the way we're trained as human beings, we're trained to do. We get praised not for being, we get
Mm,
praised for doing, for achieving, for being smart, and for being able to think creatively and productively. But rarely are we praised just for being. And so, because of that, because of our societal training and familial training and educational training, we're trained to be really good thinkers, but not so good beers. And so when we meet each other, for the most part, we're thinking. We're thinking, how does my hair look? We're thinking, oh, she's really beautiful. We're thinking, oh, wonder where she is right now. But how present are we? And I think that in a sense, the landing that we've just done is to say, okay, hi, that real heart hi. And for me, the question is then, how do you live like that? How do you greet your lover in the kitchen with this being so present that you're not thinking? In my case, I have an intimate partner, Mo, and so if I met him in the kitchen, would I would I see him for who he is in this moment? Would I feel him for who he's being in this moment? Would I be present to that? Or am I thinking, well, he didn't put the bins out yesterday? Or, oh my gosh, what are we going to do tomorrow? And that thinking diminishes your capacity to be as present as you would need to be, to feel as fulfilled by the moment as you yearn to be.
yes. And I want to share this too, just because it's words that our community uses often to serve the moment to the degree that we're desiring to like serve truth or allow truth to flow through us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that service, I mean, as you know, one of the teachers who's had the most profound impact on me is David Deida, and he likens it to first, second, and third stage moments. So, first stage moment is about me, second stage moment is about we, third stage moment is about love. And so when you're in a first stage moment, you're engaging with someone to get something. When you're in a second stage moment, you're making sure that both of you are getting what you want. And in the third stage moment, you know you have clear boundaries, you know that you could give and receive equally and fairly, and then suddenly love moves through you in a way that says, give your man space. And your first stage heart is going, no, 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 I'm insecure. I want his love and attention right now, right? And the second stage part of you is going, well, but he should be able to take space whenever he wants. You know, like it's fair and equal. There is this love momentum that's saying he's at capacity. Let's be spacious, or whatever else it is. Like love moves through you, and to me, that's serving love. It's you're feeling your heart, you're feeling the other heart, and you're feeling all hearts, and you're not efforting so that all hearts are served. You're allowing love to move through you, and trusting that that is moving through you for the service of love, to the service of love and the moment. And it takes some practice to be able to discern the difference between love moving through you in the moment. I'm calling it love, but you can call it consciousness, Shakti, life force, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yep.
So for the sake of simplicity, it's this discernment between how love is moving through you and your past is moving through you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Or a thought is moving through you.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. I mean, in my community with my with the women that I work with, one of the things that I think is so potent is we're not having cafe conversations. You know, when you have a cafe conversation, hey, how you doing? Like when we met just before this podcast, we met, like we said, hey, how are you? It wasn't, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm really great, and da da da. Or it wasn't, oh God, you know, I roll, my man's like, da da. Like it was true. It was deeper than that. It's like, wow, this has been going on and this has been going on. And it's a sharing of something that's what I call deeper than the drama. And the drama is great, like it's entertaining for a little while, but then there comes a point where it's not enough. Like your deep heart intuits there's more. There's more to give, there's more to receive, there's more to live. There's something deeper. And I think that is layered. I think it's infinitely deep.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's infinitely deep. So we could meet with our deepest hearts today, and because we're evolving as human beings, we could meet again tomorrow, and there would be another layer and another layer. And I think that's the beautiful truth of the journey. You never know what's on the other side of the moment, but if you're in it fully, it will reveal itself, and it's infinitely deep.
I have so many threads that we could veer off into just based on what you're sharing. And I feel like you just called everyone deeper in this moment. And so sometimes in episodes or in the show, we'll almost do like a moment of calling ourselves in or calling ourselves deeper, or a bit of a practice. And kind of just want to give the community and anyone listening space to just go, okay, can I bring myself a little bit deeper? Can I maybe listen to this conversation a little bit more deeply? So I don't know, just an invitation. And
Can I offer something to that?
please.
Because I think it's so much easier than we think. So just that. So you've just invited whoever's listening to drop in a little deeper. And sometimes the mind says, well, how do I do that? Or, you know what? It's a breath away. And I think it's really important to remember, if you're listening to someone and then all of a sudden you soften your ears while you're listening, and you soften your throat and your heart and your belly, then the receptivity, you're drinking them in more deeply. It's like when you go for a walk and you see a beautiful rose, you can kind of go, and it's nice, or you can really soften your whole body and being. And when you inhale the scent of that rose, because the softening is there, it can permeate you more deeply, and all of a sudden the scent of that rose has dropped deeper than just here. It's all the way down to your toes, and there is a moment fully experienced just by that softening. So when I go for a walk, I live on the beach. I'm pointing because through that window is the sea. So when I go for a walk, I practice just, instead of looking at the ocean, softening my eyes, drinking the ocean in, softening my ears, drinking the sounds in, softening my nose down to my throat and drinking that in as I inhale the sea air, and that letting the wind caress, softening the skin consciously, softening my feet, so feeling and hearing and seeing and tasting and smelling. By softening, you become more permeable. You are able to be touched more deeply. And an example that I always give is, if you extend your arm and you tighten it up and you touch it, you can feel a little bit. But if you soften the inside of your arm and then you touch it, the sensation is entirely different. And that's how we could live our lives. We could look at the sun, we could look at each other and soften enough to receive. And I think because of our human experiences that are sometimes traumatic, that are sometimes difficult, we create these habits of self-protection. So your breath remains a little shallow. Maybe your sternum is dropped just a little, just to protect your heart. Because if you lift it, you'll feel more vulnerable in that moment. Maybe there's a tension in your jaw or in your ass or in your belly. But that tension prevents us from giving and receiving as deeply as we yearn to. And I have to say, I had this essential moment, and this is a long time ago now. My son is 20, so we're talking probably 23 years ago now. One of my best friends had a baby, and I happened to be working 5 minutes from the hospital. So when I got the text that she'd had the baby, I was on my way home and I dropped in. But it was before all of her family came. It was just her and her husband. It was their first child. And as with all newborn babies, you are just awestruck. This pure, beautiful soul, this soft, fleshy body, just so exquisitely beautiful. And so when her family came, I sort of stood back a little bit and I watched them come in one by one and
Oh,
fall in love,
uh-huh.
with this baby. And I saw this, and I remember walking out and going to my car, sitting in the driver's seat and pulling the revision mirror down and looking in my own eyes and saying out loud, when did we stop looking at each other like that? With
Wow.
such love, such not presence like us practitioners might think of, like, let's be present, like, just, it was without question. It just was. And all you need to do is look in a baby's eyes and you'll see that, because babies naturally, they are pure presence. But that question just came out of my mouth out loud. When did we stop looking at each other like that? And of course, the answer is when we got old enough to think,
Totally.
have judgments, to think about this person and me and da 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 da, like it's those thoughts that get in the way. That love it's who we are. You experience it in spontaneous moments because for a moment there's nothing in the way, but it never went anywhere. It's who we are. So I just wanted to share that story because it was such a beautiful example of.
It's such a perfect, exquisite example and so tangible. I feel there's something I'd also like to point out just to everyone listening, is the radiance that is you, just the sheer transmission that is you, and I think so many people read things or hear things about the feminine radiance and and there's questions around what is that, like,
Yeah.
okay, is that pretty, is that,
Right.
yeah, like, what is that? And I just want to say, like, what a beautiful, amazing example of just this feminine radiance and transmission that we're all receiving, and just the emanation of love, and you, the way that you're inviting everyone to just soften and be more receptive, and to just everyone to kind of take a moment and go check in and, like, how do I feel, or how did I feel as Lisa was taking us through these different things, and just, like, I just, it's almost like I get to bring the mental realm into the conversation, so people are getting hit from different angles. Like, here's the feel, and then let's bring some language to it, and then here's the next feel, and then
Well,
yeah.
what I would say on that, and I think especially in the age we live in with social media and being very bombarded every day by what we should look like, sound like, weigh, feel, do, be, where I think the danger in all of that is the forgetting that every single one of us is utterly unique. We're not built to be the same. It's impossible, just DNA. It's impossible for us to be the same. And so, just radiance, for example, how I move my body or speak or breathe, I mean, all of that is emanating radiance, right? That's different to how you would emanate radiance. But what allows the greatest and deepest radiance is relaxation. It's, again, I know it sounds too simple to be true, but if we put here a model perfect woman, so a woman who on Instagram would be considered beautiful, and well, let's say a magazine. So I think Instagram's really growing up in terms of bodies, but let's say a magazine like in the 90s, where you had to be stick skinny, right? And you had another, so she had makeup on and just dressed to the model perfect, and you had another woman with no makeup, whatever size she wanted to be. If this model perfect woman was clenched in her jaw, her belly, her eyes were narrowed, her breath was contracted, but the other woman was in a paper bag, but her breath was full, her body was relaxed, like the natural radiance was coming through her eyes, then clearly we would be able to feel her light and see her light way more easily. And it's really important not only to know that your radiance shines through you when you are relaxed, but it will never, also that it will never look like anyone else. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. It is. I remember Alan Watts. I remember hearing an audio of his many, many, many years ago. And it was something along the lines of, you don't hear seashells at the bottom of the ocean saying, well, you're shinier than me, or your conch is bigger than mine, or, right, you don't, it's like, it's utterly ridiculous. And yet here we are walking around comparing ourselves all the time. And it's such a diminishment of our innate radiance, because in that radiance is our Shakti, is our life force, is love. I mean, again, I know it sounds simple, and I love simplicity and practice, but if your viewers, watchers, and listeners want to do this as a practice, all you need to do is look in the mirror. And at first you'll see your face or whatever you're wearing. Maybe you'll see pimples or wrinkles or freckles or whatever you judge. And then if you just soften your eyes and you look at the light in your own eyes, and that's all you do, is you just soften into and see the light in your own eyes. Once you've seen that, you are forever changed. And my hope is that when you walk past the shop window, you catch the light in your own eyes, rather than going, oh, does my ass look big or small in this? You see the light in your eyes, and you look at yourself like you would that baby. Like, wow. Just wow. And that we could greet each other and see the light in each other's eyes. So as soon as you come into conflict with someone, if for a moment you can get past the mind and just see the light in their eyes, it's the same light that's in your eyes. It's the same light that's in all eyes. There's something that just melts everything that really is irrelevant for the most part. It just kind of melts it away.
Yep. I have a tiny little story to share on this. It's super short, but I will occasionally edit some of our videos. I don't do much of it, and I definitely used to do more back in the day, but when my brain, because when I'm editing, obviously you're thinking, right? There's a lot of thought going on. You're in the do mode, you're in the thinking mode. But I remember one time I was just tired, and my mind was kind of switched off, and I think I had just finished filming. So I was kind of in a different state of being, and the video starts playing, and I find myself 2 minutes later, like smiling and in love with, right? It's like looking in the mirror, in love, and it's just me on the film. I'm like,
right.
And I'm just like there, I'm like, oh God.
Right.
God, I love swimming in this energy. It's just so good. And it's me. Right?
Yeah.
But it's that being in the relaxed state, not having the tightness, the thinking, the having to do state.
Yeah.
And that radiance piece, that radiance piece. So I would love, Lisa, I think what will really serve those listening is more simple practices. So I can almost hear some people thinking, okay, relaxing. This is good. This is relaxing. Right. Okay. I can look in my eyes, find the radiance in my eyes. Okay. What else?
Right.
And so something else that just popped into my mind around the what else, and maybe you already, I know that there's things flowing too for you all of the time, but around what is the word I want to use? Being able to maintain or it be more consistent to stay at that
Mm,
state for longer and longer and longer periods of time in more and more and
mm,
more challenging situations. So it's great when I'm
sure.
in front of the mirror and it's 7 p.m. and I've,
Absolutely.
right? But
That's way
now,
easier.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
would love to just weave into that if there's something that's arising.
I think that whenever you become consciously aware that your body's doing something that is let's just say a self-protection mechanism rather than revealing your true heart, I think once you become aware of it, you open the door to consciously find a new way of being. So if you know, for example, that every time you get belly to belly with your lover, your jaw tenses, your sternum drops a little bit. So there's a little bit of heart protection, a little bit of contraction around your expression. I think as soon as you notice that, that's the doorway, and that's what I would always encourage is get to know your closures, get to know what you do, like, and when I say what you do, if we keep it really simple, what your body does, your physical body, your emotional body, and your thinking body. So what do you do, as in your breath and your movement? How do you feel, your emotional disposition? And what is your thinking? So once we become aware of those habitual ways of being, then we can work with them to consciously find a new way of being. Sometimes it's just that you've never experienced it. I mean, when I'm working, so my partner and I work with couples, and sometimes when we're working with a couple, it's not that they have massive emotional or physical armor going on that's preventing them from really getting belly to belly with each other. It's just they were never taught.
Yeah.
And they experience it, and it's such a revelation. They're like, wow, I want to do this again and again and again.
Yeah.
But it's easy for them because their habitual way of being is not rooted in a trauma
Yep.
that is a very strong reflex that served very well at the time of the trauma for self-protection. There's always more work, as you know, there's always more work when there's a trauma or something is a very, very long-term habit. But sometimes it's just you've never done it, and then you do it, it's like, this is fucking fantastic. Like, why haven't I don't know, like women, when I say to women, just in lovemaking, just the next time, if they're making love with a man, the next time he's inside of you, just to really soften your vagina, soften your heart. And they come back and they're like, holy fuck. I didn't know I could feel this and this and this. And I was, and all it is that they never knew they intuited that there was more to be experienced, but they didn't know that softening was the way.
Yep.
And there isn't necessarily, for one woman, there may not necessarily be anything that's keeping that part of the body clenched tight to prevent from feeling. It's just they haven't experienced it before. So I think getting familiar with what your body does and your mind does and your feelings do is this first step. And then whatever it is you want to practice, I love creating a disciplined practice and then an in the moment practice. I mean,
Mm.
I think, well, actually, I cannot take credit for this. So something my partner says to the couples we work with is, you're always practicing. So every time you are engaged, every time you're moving, breathing, you're practicing. Are you practicing moving fluidly or with tension? Are you practicing softening your eyes when you're looking at your lover? Or are you practicing feeling your lover's heart? Or are you practicing criticizing your partner, gazing at them in an accusatory way rather than a responsive way? So we're always practicing. Everything we're doing is practicing.
Yep.
So when I really want to practice something, I'll set an alarm every hour. So a practice that I do every night and every morning is just as I'm drifting off to sleep, and when I first wake up, I feel myself as the fullness of love. Just feel myself as that. So I bring my breath down into my belly. I feel the fullness of my belly, and I feel myself as the fullness of love. And as I drift off to sleep, I'll notice a thought will come, my lips will get a bit tense, I'll soften them again, feel myself as the fullness of love. And as best I can, I do that until I drift off to sleep, and I let that be my first thought, feeling myself. So thinking, feeling, and being the fullness of love. And the reason I do it last thing at night and first thing in the morning, because that's the time to influence your unconscious mind, as you well know. And the unconscious mind is your body mind. And here's the thing, your body mind is limited. But the love you are is infinite, is unlimited, is eternal. And so we will forever be doing therapy, healing, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. That's fine, but it doesn't need to limit your allowing of love through your body. If you have, so I have an injury at the moment, right? So I can only walk for so far, and then Mo has to piggyback me on the way back. No, well, he did the other day, but you know, then I have pain, and there's a limit. There's a limit to my body, which is I can only walk so far at the moment. But the love I am is unlimited. And the love, freedom, consciousness, life, whatever you want to call it, is what we're all yearning for.
Yeah.
So you think of the greatest artists, they are limited. They had mental illness. They had limbs chopped off. They painted with their mouth. Like, your limits don't have to limit you in terms of your living, your fullness of living and giving and receiving. You don't need to be limited by that. Yes, do therapy. Yes, heal what needs to be healed. Of course, it's healthy. It's a good idea. But never forget who you are at essence, which is what I'm calling love. And so little practices like every night and before I go to sleep and then when I wake up. But in the beginning of that practice, years and years and years ago, I would have set an alarm. And every hour on the hour, feel myself as love just for a minute. And move again throughout my day, feel myself as love. And then what happens is you're with your lover, you're with your child, you're with a client, you're with an interviewer, and that is just there innately. There's less in the way of that because you've practiced it. So disciplined practice, and then a waking up to the moment and bringing it into the moment consciously and consciously and consciously until it's just, until who you are is how you're being. Because coming back to the baby, why is it that when we look into a baby's eyes, I mean, they're just unguarded, right? So we learn that guardedness. And yes, it's true. At times it was very necessary. But is it in this moment? And what about this moment? And what about this moment? So you talk about radiance. I mean, one of the things I teach women is how to be invisible. When I walk through the airport, I'm invisible. I walk in a way that is invisible. I move in a way that's invisible. I don't walk through the airport. I probably wouldn't even wear this. I would even like dress invisibly, just simply because I don't want anyone's attention from the airport. But if I were with my lover on the beach, then I would be shining. I'm not tensing around my radiance.
Yep.
I'm just being neutral.
Yep.
That's the difference. So revealing your heart when you so choose to whom you choose. Who do you
Yeah.
want to invite into your heart?
Yeah. And for me, I liked that you used the word not tensing around my radiance, right? So there's always, for me, there's always this internal radiance happening.
Yeah, you want that
Internal
oceanic,
pleasure.
juicy.
Yeah. With my
Absolutely.
invisibility cloak over.
Exactly,
Right? So it's
exactly.
not that I'm shutting that down or turning that off. It's like I'm still juicy and alive, but
Yeah.
there's an invisibility cloak over me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, I have to credit this to David Deida because he's the one who taught me that. When I
Nice.
first started working with him in 2008, I was straight out of the ashram. So I lived in an ashram for 3 years. I was very neutral. If you look at photos of me, I would dress neutral. I
Wow.
behaved like everything was neutral, right?
Yeah.
My practice was very deep, but it was all masculine practice. Mm, not all of it. I've always been incredibly devotional. So chanting and singing is a feminine practice, and doing like ritual and is a feminine practice. But all my meditation was masculine. It was, slipping into the gap of nothingness. And so when I first started working with David and sort of started to really remember my deep inner flow of feeling and love and this fluidity, I realized very quickly as I was living in the UK at the time that if I walked up the high street, oh yeah, I could feel this man groping my backside and I could feel this person thinking that. It's like, well, this is really horrible. That's what David was talking about when he said about learning to be invisible. So then I would practice being invisible, and it was fantastic because I didn't have to be tense around my naturalness. Like,
Yes.
when I remember my partner, the first time we ate together was an Indian meal, and I love good food. I had a restaurant many, many years ago, a couple of decades ago, fine dining restaurant. I love, but it could be street food. It doesn't matter what food it is. I love really good food. And so I must have been eating this, and I must have gone, oh, like just, my hips tend to wiggle when I really love food. And he just looked at me and said, wow, you really love food, don't you? And I was like, yeah, but I didn't. And he reminds me of that. So, what's interesting about that is in relation to food. So, we're talking, Mo and I have been together 13 years now. So, straight out of the ashram, in relation to food, my naturalness, my responsiveness, my freedom of expression was there. But in relationship, in sexual intimacy, I needed to come into relationship with that part of myself again, into trust. And then over time, that fluidity of responsiveness, that spontaneousness, it, it came. And part of that journey was not only feeling again that fluidity, but also knowing how to be neutral. Because a lot of the times when we don't know how to be neutral, we know that we're kind of being slimed energetically. And then that's when we clench around it, we get tense around it. It's a form of protection.
Yep. Yep.
So learning how to do both, um, I, in fact, Mo teaches women martial arts. Has done ninjutsu for over 20 years. He's a black belt, and um, he teaches women, and they love it. They love this feeling of with swords, and just this feeling of this is what it feels like to reclaim the power in my body. And I think it's important that as women you can embody the feeling of that you can embody neutrality and invisibility, that you can embody don't even fucking think about it, and you can embody hi. right? That you can embody that full spectrum and trust yourself in that, I think is
Yes. I
deeply
love those
important.
words. Trust yourself in that. I feel like that's something we could go into, is this trust yourself. And I don't know if there's,
Yes.
yes, I'll let you go. If there's, please.
Well, I think, look, the world is the world. Again, if we look at David's model of first, second, third stage, most of the world is walking around first stage wanting to get what they want
Yeah.
without considering the other. Unfortunately, I think we're evolving, and that's a beautiful thing. And I wish women didn't have to walk around the world being invisible. Like that would, my heart's wish would be that we could be free.
That we've
It's
evolved
just,
to
it's
that level of conscious, that we're at that place,
right.
but we're not.
So in trust, I think what's interesting is, let's just look at trust in relationship. I think trust in relationship has is way more about how deeply you trust yourself than the other. And what I mean by that
Yes.
is, if you trust that you'll feel how you feel, you'll allow it to ripple through the body, and you cultivate the skill of expressing it as an invitation. This is in an intimate relationship. So if you can feel, allow, and express as an invitation, if you trust yourself, then you don't have to worry about whether your partner's being trustable or not, because your partner is, when I say being trustable, what I mean is, let's say presence, like present. You don't want to make love with someone who's thinking about the football, or I don't know, like thinking about, like they're half with you, half not. You want full bodied, deep heart communion, I think. I mean, I do. I know you do, right? So that
Mhm.
requires presence. So if you're making love with your partner and they're not present, if you feel that, oh, it's like this feeling of like it's painful and you feel kind of lost, like where are you? If your body displays that, just that little sound, your partner's going to go, They may not know why you made the sound, but because you made the sound, they then become present. They lean in a little bit. Well, now they're present. It's like, so then the next feeling you're displaying is relief. So that moment by moment expression of how you feel as an invitation, that's the dance in relationship and in intimacy. And as women, we're taught, again, by society and religion and peer groups and family, let alone transgenerational handing down, we're taught that some feelings are okay to
Ah,
feel and others are not. And it's not the same. I have a woman friend, and in her family, anger was fine. You could feel it, you could allow it, you could express it. It was done, clean, clear, not a problem. In my family, there wasn't a you're not allowed to get angry, but no one really got angry much. And so if anyone got angry, like I was scared. Like I was like, what's going on? Because I didn't experience it on a regular basis. So we come into our intimate relationship with feelings. In workshops, I have women say to me all the time when they cry, oh God, I'm so silly for crying. It's like, all right, let's just press pause. It's okay. Someone just told you when you were crying as a little girl, don't be silly. If they had said to you, I love that you're crying and showing me your vulnerable heart, you wouldn't be saying to me right now, I'm so sorry, I'm crying, I'm so silly, right? So we're taught what feelings are acceptable or not. And so I feel our practice, if you want to be a full spectrum human being, then you've got to explore those feelings that are uncomfortable, because anything that's suppressed will come out dysfunctionally. So women who suppress hurt, it'll eventually come out as anger. It could be bitchy, whiny, naggy, passive aggressive, volcanic, but suppressed hurt eventually changes to anger. And sometimes it can only take 1 minute. Your partner says something insensitive, you feel hurt, you don't say anything because you don't want to be silly. then you look, for fuck's sake, haven't you even put the bins out yet? He's like, no, I just haven't had a chance yet. It's like, like it's confusing because
Totally.
what he's getting is the drama rather than the deep feeling. So it's very confusing for our partners when what they're getting is the surface. But if we can feel the frustration, for example, go, whoa, soften, breathe, love the frustration, like just allow it to be. Pretty quickly, what's underneath the frustration will arise and be like, oh, I felt hurt.
Yeah.
You know, so my partner in 5 minutes will receive from me tears of vulnerability, giggles of delight, purrs of pleasure. I mean, but that's taken practice over time because I, like all human beings, had certain feelings that I just didn't really express. And for me, it was anger. In fact, not to bang on about David, but again, the examples come to my mind. I remember my very first intensive with him in 2008 was a 7-day intensive. And I remember him looking at me and he said, I bet you your spiritual practice is perfectly geared toward love and light. And I'm sitting here, remember, fresh out of the ashram, you know, I
Uh-huh.
would do a specific puja called the Aarti, which is all about light. That was my practice every day. So I'm sitting there going, yeah, yeah. And then he goes, and there's a whole lot of stuff rumbling underneath that you're not addressing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he just saw straight through me. And it was true. And in fact, one of my first practices was to express open-hearted anger
Yeah.
to Mo and for him to stand and hold and receive and love that. And you would think, you know, because most of us as women have a lot of suppressed hurt and anger, you'd think, fantastic, I get to unleash. It took me about half an hour to move my back from the wall to actually get belly to belly with him because I was so terrified of feeling angry. And of course, because I had the practice of keeping my heart wide open instead of it being a toxic dump of residue, it was this open-hearted revelation. And I would say within about 3 minutes of rageful sound, with my heart wide open, I was just this deeply vulnerable, tearful heart. Like that's what was revealed was the deep hurt that I had not expressed. And it was one of the most beautiful gifts that he gave me because he stood there and loved every ounce of it. So I think, you know, for us, it's important to continue every day to clear out the residue so that you can respond fresh, you know, so that you're not bitching about the bins, but instead you're saying, ouch. It doesn't have to be a big drama. Our partners are often afraid that if we express how we feel, it's going to go on and on and on and on. But what's amazing is if you just go, ouch, and they go, oh, got it, it's over. And now you're like, right? And now they're like, oh, and that's the dance, moment by moment.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you have just brought such beautiful words to this, Lisa, and made it so clear and so fantastic. And I'd love to share a tiny little story
Yeah,
to maybe
please.
broaden it for those listening so that it's not just about intimate partner.
Sure.
So for me, my family is a old school farming family, very patriarchal, very just very for us very Republican politically, and it maybe paints a picture. My uncle's a football coach, right? It's just, and it's beautiful, and I love where I come from, and I love my family, but the feminine revealing Deep
Mm.
vulnerability is not something that happens in my family system.
Right.
Revealing hurt is
Mm.
not something that happens in my family system.
Right.
So we're sitting at a card table. We play cards. That's what we do. We play sheep's head, this old German game. So we're playing cards, and I'm very different than my family. I live a very different life, and there's, jokes that get cracked sometimes about, whatever they are.
Right.
And one of those comments came up during this card game, and
Mm.
I and it happened. I felt the hurt, and I went, "How am I going to respond to this?" And I
Uh-huh.
just softened, relaxed, and I went right into it, and the tears came. Now, you do not cry. This does not happen in my family. The tears came, and I looked at the two men in my family who were saying these things, and they're like, they run the family. And I looked at both of them and I said, "This hurts a lot when you guys say that, or when that unfolds." It obliterated the room. The
Right.
room, it obliterated the room.
Right.
Everyone softened. It was like
Mm.
deep calls unto deep, right? Like if I
Yeah.
can be deeply vulnerable and just go, "Oh my God, this hurts." And then they can go, "Holy shit, I don't want
Right.
to hurt you." Like, the
Yes.
last thing I want to do is hurt you, but they would have never known
Exactly.
had I not
Exactly.
accessed that and trusted my own feel. And
Yes.
sometimes it feels like courage to express it in a system that's not the norm,
Absolutely. It's
but
deeply
it's
courageous.
never happened again.
This is
Never has a conversation.
right.
Go ahead.
Well, what I just want to illuminate is because what I work with people is what their body is doing. I mean, aside from the
Mhm.
psyche, but the body is the last place for anything to land, right? So what you did just by keeping your breath full, your body soft, and revealing what I call the original feeling. So
Yeah,
so if you had suppressed the hurt, clenched your jaw, contracted your breath, and gone, you know, I, it doesn't feel good when you do that. That closure in your body, in your tone, in your eyes, in your breath would have evoked equivalent closure.
totally. They would have gone into defense.
Exactly. So this is the thing. When your body's soft and full and open and you reveal it as a truth, so what I call that is expressing how you feel as an invitation rather than as an accusation. Accusations can be very subtle or very obvious. It can be, "You're a fucking idiot," right? Whole breath, body, it's an accusation. Or it could be, you know, when you da da da, like it's there in the tone, in the tension.
Mhm.
So the tension is what ripples out. So to make it really simple, if all anyone feels into or is aware of is the tension, then you'll know what you're rippling out and therefore evoking. And that cannot be underestimated. You can be fierce and relaxed on the inside. You can be vulnerable. You can be ecstatic. You can be sad and grieving. It's the tension that evokes more tension. And the reason is if we bring it back to first, second, and third stage, my interpretation of that is when you're tense, you're in a first stage moment because you're protecting something. And when you are protecting something with your tone, with your body, with your breath, the other person's got to protect themselves too. And now you've got this is a first stage moment. I'm protecting me, the other person's protecting themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that you soften and you open yourself to someone who would abuse you. And this is where it comes back to self-trust. If
Yes.
if in that moment you had said, that hurts, and they had gone, well, we don't give a shit, get over it. And you had said, that really hurts. And they're like, well, we still don't give a fucking shit, get over it. Then at that point, you've got to choose. How long do you stay in the room, the relationship, reveal your heart, and be abused and be dismissed? Like,
Oh,
that's your choice. Like, how do you say, because at that moment, so if that revelation is what I would call a third stage moment, you're revealing, like, love is moving through you. That's love
yeah.
speaking, right? As vulnerability. So if you get, well, I don't care, then you have to, like, by trusting that this hurt is real, but you have the boundaries. You could say, all right, I get you're unable to hold this hurt. I need to leave the card table. I'm going to go take some space. Or I need to leave the relationship, or whatever it is. Like, the degree to which you trust yourself to feel how you feel, allow it, express it as an invitation. What's equally important in that, and inherent as a part of it, is that you could say yes or no and mean it. Like, I can say no, but it doesn't mean I'm all tense. It's just a no. It's a no that is without question. Like, I get women to walk around the room and feel the difference when they're saying no as an accusation, no as an invitation, or no as a full stop.
Yep. Yep.
It's really important.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So I love that example. I think it's really important. And this piece around tension, can I share a story with you? So again, David picked up very early that I had an aversion to anger. So this is over a decade ago. And so this was a very small intensive, actually. There were only 6 of us. And he said to me, it wasn't even my question. I don't even know what question I asked, but his response was, okay, so for the rest of the workshop, your job is to throw massive swear bombs into the middle of the room and be completely disruptive. And, like, my straight A student, don't want to interrupt, be disruptive, was slightly horrified. And I said, what, while you're teaching? He said, no. He said, don't traumatize anyone if it's a vulnerable moment. But yeah, for the rest of the workshop, I want you to just throw, he said, just give it a try, just swear. And I was like, fuck. And he's like, all right, will someone help her out? So one of the other women did an example of a massive swear bomb. And first of all, I hardly swore at all in those days. I apologize
No,
to
we love
anyone
it.
who is
We
offended
love it. We love
by
it.
bombs, because they do fly out sometimes now. But anyway, so he said, all right, give it a try. And I sat there. Probably took me about 3 minutes, that 3 minutes of silence, like just trying to muster it. And then finally, I just went, where's my fucking coffee, you motherfucker, or something like that, which for me was really, really big at the time. And everybody cracked up laughing. And then there was this collective, and he said, right there, did you feel that? And I said, yeah. They all just sighed. And he said, yeah, they're sighing with relief. Because what you didn't
Yes.
realize was your tension around being disruptive has been entrapping them for this entire workshop so far. And the
Oh.
moment you released your tension around that and you allowed truth to move through you, even though you play acted it, they were relieved. So you have gifted them. You have rippled out relaxation through their bodies because you allowed the melting of that tension in your body. And I tell you, it was without a doubt one of the most profound moments in my life to truly truly appreciate how we are rippling out to each other all the time. We are rippling out our insecurities when we're thinking inside ourselves, God, does anyone like me in this room? Everyone's so much prettier than me. What am I going to do? Like, that is what you're rippling out, and everybody else's body is vibrating with that tension. I don't know if you know this, but if you get two guitars next to each other and you pluck the string on one guitar, the same string vibrates on the other guitar. So we are vibrating by our thoughts and like feeling, doing, thinking, being, that's rippling out all the time. And it was, oh my goodness, it was such a beautiful, I can still feel their collective sigh. And I thought that I was just a really good human,
Mm.
a really good non-violent human. Now, I'm not saying go out and be violent, but my tension around, I mean, I don't know, if someone's poisoning a river, if someone's harming a child in front of you, you're not going to go, hey, you're going to go, stop, right? The fire of the goddess is going to come out to stop that harm. That's not going to be sweet and tender.
I have tears that we have gotten to this point in this conversation, Lisa. My heart is exploding. And yeah, that we are able to find this tangible example and to just talk about how interconnected we are
Yeah,
and how much we are influencing each other, and we
all the time.
are our little brains will never pick it up. It will
Exactly.
never understand how much, and this like gift that is us coming into, full spectrum, and this gift that is us releasing these tensions and us doing all of the work that we're all doing in our own different ways to evolve and to be more love and to be more conscious, and the profound effect that it's having.
Yeah. And when you really start to pay attention to it, think about it. If you have a puppy in front of you or a baby, you can't go, hey, puppy, come here, like full of tension. If it's that puppy's afraid or like your body has to be very relaxed, right? I
Mm.
noticed my beautiful father, he died a few years ago and he had early onset Alzheimer's. So he was very young with Alzheimer's. And as he got closer, he had Alzheimer's for 11 years. So as he got near the end, what happens is the feeling sensitivity is what's enhanced. And if you've ever read Jill Bolte Taylor's book, Stroke of Insight, have you ever read that?
Oh, no, 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 but I know the book, and yes.
Right. Yeah. So she describes when her left brain was shutting down, right? So she describes it so beautifully. What's left is just beingness,
Ah,
right? So my dad became more and more intuitive. We would sit in the car. So I would spend every Monday with him. We would go together and I would take him to movies and shows and we'd have lunch and do all sorts of really beautiful things, which is great because I've spent most of my life living overseas and I'm in Australia now. So um, I'm just so deeply glad that I was here for that time. And so I would just be thinking while I was driving along and he would intuit what I was thinking. So that was really interesting. But then what was really great education for my son, who's now 20, in the school holidays, Alex would come with me and we'd go watch a movie and I will have booked the movie. There was one time I booked the movie and Alex was in the back, Dad was in the passenger seat in the front, and Alex said, what movie are we going to see? And I said what the movie was, and he's like, I don't want to see that movie. I want to see it. Like, so he was kind of like tense, whiny, and I could feel my dad. I could feel the stress. It was a bit stressful, the tension. So I would just say to my son, Alex, fill the room. That was all I had to say. Alex, fill the room. And he knew what that meant was, so he would fill the room. He'd go, oh, my behavior, what I'm rippling out, is affecting Papa Pete. That was my dad. He was called Papa Pete to the grandkids, and I saw it all the time. In fact, I would in the very last year he was in this Montessori care facility for
Beautiful.
dementia patients. It was really beautiful, but I still did a little bit of training with the staff. Like when you approach
Wow.
him and you're in a hurry,
It-
the tension in your body and the tension in your voice is what he's feeling. So it's jolting. So what he would need is for you to just be very relaxed as you approach him rather than like, oh, here, Pete, here's your blah, blah, blah. It's too much. It's like his nervous system was super sensitive. So that training of my son of feel the room, it's it's ideally what we would all be doing.
yeah.
If you had a room full of puppies who were wild and you had to try and feed and they were too afraid to come near you, you just sit very quietly. If you felt what they needed was for you to sit quietly, right? You're feeling them and you're responding. And it's a beautiful, I mean, that coming back to what you were talking about earlier, that's serving. That's
Yes.
serving. It's allowing that deeper informing to guide you spontaneously, moment by moment by moment.
And there's a word that I want to bring in here, and it's this: we come into like integrity within ourself, right? So it's what we're feeling inside matches what we're thinking, speaking, and how we're acting. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I know
Yes.
you were
So there's
talking
no
about,
disjointedness.
yep, yep. I watch with, or, sometimes you watch individuals override something and it's so deeply patterned and so unconscious, but, like our jobs facilitating is, I'm guessing yours is similar in some situations where it's to watch the deeper truth. You're watching the truth in
Exactly.
someone's body and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm fine. You're like, bullshit. What?
Yeah.
And I think
Mm.
this coming into integrity with ourselves and
Mm.
almost, that relationship. And I know we've talked about so many different beautiful practices and very simple ways of that integrity with that deepest truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes I think integrity is a really beautiful word, and I think sometimes it's like a lot of words um, over the decade of, I don't know, however long we've all had websites and social media. There's a lot of words that have kind of been uchified.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It's like authentic. It's like I loved that word, and now I see the word authentic, and it's kind of there are ways that if it's been used and it's perhaps not as it's not perhaps it's just because my inclination is toward depth, and when I see a word that innately is sourced in depth and it's used in different ways, it's not to make people's expression of it wrong, but it's definitely a yeah, words have kind of been overused
Yeah.
or maybe watered down. But I think integrity is one of those beautiful words that if you're too rigid can seem kind of harsh and dogmatic, and it means you need to be a certain way. But I think the way you're describing integrity is in its true form, which is in alignment
Yeah,
with,
that
in
was the
alignment with the originalness, so the original feeling. So we can feel, so for example, I know that it's tricky talking about masculine and feminine, and I'm not talking about it as a gender thing. If we just think of masculine and feminine as masculine is formless, feminine is form, then feeling, the flow of feeling, the fluidity of feeling is the feminine. Now, if I vomit all over you how I felt yesterday or last year, there's not a lot of integrity in that, as in what's moving through me in this moment is not actually what's being transmitted through my body. So maybe I feel vulnerable in this moment, but it triggers something from my past, and what you get instead is a whole bunch of other emotion that doesn't really have to do with this moment. It's just that the feeling of vulnerability has triggered that. And so then there's this avalanche of feeling from the past or maybe from the future. So to me, that's out of integrity. What would be in integrity is I feel vulnerable, and the display of vulnerability is what is shown through the fullness of my body and my breath and my heart and my soul. Whereas masculine integrity, if masculine is the container in which we pour forth into, or the sky in which the nothingness in which fullness exists, the feeling, one of the feelings of masculine is that direction that something's going, like the riverbanks to the river, the flow of the river. Well, the masculine would be out of integrity if it said, I'm going this way and then went this way. No, I'm going this way and then went this way. Or I'm going to do this but does this. Or just not being fully present, in a sense, is a lack of masculine integrity, because innately the masculine is presence. So to
yes.
not embody that which you are, it's a lack of integrity. But I don't mean it in a judgy way. Like, it's just, we feel it in ourselves. We feel it in ourselves, whether we're vomiting emotions from the past or we're really not present as we want to be, man or woman. We can feel that, and we intuit there's something deeper, more true to be experienced here. We can feel that, we can intuit it, but our body is not in alignment with that essence of who we are, or that original flow of
Yes.
feeling, or that presence that we are. And again, if we come back to habit, sometimes it just takes a little bit of practice, especially I think because everyone's on devices, to practice presence. It's almost like, thank God meditation is hip and cool right now, or the world would be screwed, because our attention is being diverted so quickly in so many directions. If there weren't that counterbalance of meditation, like, our brains, our nervous
Oh
systems,
my gosh.
would be absolutely strung out.
Yes.
So, but again, you could have a spontaneous moment of meditation just by watching a sunrise, and you didn't even know you were meditating. But what were you doing? You were empty, spacious, fully present. There it is.
Yep.
But then, like you were saying, then how do you bring it to the moments that matter? So if you can be empty and present and with the sunset, how do you be empty and present with your partner? If you can play your favorite music and feel the fullness of the music just kind of moving your body, well, and you're responding to the music, can you respond to your lover's touch in the same way? Or can you respond to your child in the same way? Or your friend in the same way? Or your students, or whoever it is you're with? I mean, that's where the practice comes in. It's you look at where you would need to practice more disciplinedly so that the artistry can come through. It's like playing scales. You've got to practice your scale so the music can move through you as artistically as possible, if that's the way you choose to live, you know?
Hmm. Oh, Lisa, you just brought the most perfect words to what I was attempting to explain about integrity. And
Yeah.
Martha Beck was just on the podcast with her
Oh,
book, The
wow.
Way of Integrity. And so it's this that you're talking, this deep, deep truth, this deep, and those words that you used around alignment and original. I loved that you used that word in there too. It was just, it was just beautiful. I want to talk to you forever, Lisa. This is
This has been
such
really beautiful. Thank you.
an amazing conversation and so many gems and practices and insights. And just to get to that, I don't know, there was that piece that we got to around your example of the whole room went
Mm,
from my tension, that like that
yeah.
just, oh, that piece really stood out for me.
And
And
it's not to be hard on yourself. This is the thing. We
yeah,
all have bodily tensions, right? So be ever so loving with yourself. In fact, when I have a woman say to me, I don't know what to do, when my lover approaches me, or when I'm with my teenage son, like my body, like I just get really triggered, I get really tense, and how do I get over that? And it's like, well, first of all, you don't get over it with the same amount of tension. Right? So you can't beat tension out with tension. The first thing you do is you love it as it is. It's like that tension is simply, it's like if you had your child come home from kindergarten and go, I'm really mad, this person pushed me over. You wouldn't go, you shouldn't be mad, did it? You'd go, you would lovingly scoop them up and say, I get you feel mad and sad. I love you. I've got you, right? Well, that's what you want to do for yourself. If you notice that every time your partner comes close to you, your sternum drops a little bit, there's a little bit of a heart armor going on, don't go straight to, oops, okay, here's my heart. That's kind of self-abusive, right? There's a reason that's there. It could be your partner's not really present and it's a genuine response. It could be that it's a trigger from the past, but you won't know that if you don't love it. So
mm,
you have love. Like I have the feeling of a warm smile. Like I feel the tension and I have the feeling of this warm, radiant smile. Like, I get it. I see you. I love you. I've got you. And then what happens naturally is your body just goes, oh, it's the same sigh. So I've relaxed around the tension. My body is now sighed with relief. And then what will happen is what's underneath will be revealed. And if it's vulnerability or whatever it is, then you love that. Like, I've got you. I get it. And then you can discern if the vulnerability is a response, a genuine response to the moment, or if it's a trigger from the past. And then you can work out what to do. And normally, if it's heart armor, for example, and your sternum drops and your breath contracts and your brow furrows, normally if you do that process that I just said, which is pretty quick, you love the tension, you relax into it, you feel what's underneath it. Normally what will happen is that revealing that, like, there's your integrity. That's the integrity, right? That's where your integrity is sourced in that.
absolutely, that's it.
And then all you need to do is change one thing, like just lift your sternum a little,
Mhm.
or breathe just a little more fully, or unclench your jaw, soften your lips, just one thing. And when you relax and soften that one thing naturally, the limbic brain, that part of your brain that's protecting you, says, oh, I put on a red alert, but maybe we're okay. No, all right. Well, She softened her lips and no one died. She lifted her sternum and no one died. All right. Okay. Maybe it's okay. Maybe we're okay.
Oh, Lisa, you
And
have
then
so
you'll feel safer to do it again and again. And that comes to that practice that you were talking about. That's
yeah,
where your practice will grow. Because the truth is, if you said to me, I just want to feel free to speak my truth with anyone, anywhere, anytime, well, I can guarantee you the universe, because she's so compassionate, will say, all right, what about now? And then you practice it and it feels really good. And she goes, or what about now? And what about now? And that layer upon layer just kind of starts to melt away because you have an opportunity to practice again and again and again.
yes. I have loved this conversation,
Oh, me
Lisa.
too. Thank you
I have
so much.
loved it.
Thank you for your deep, wise, true heart, and thank you for everything that you've done, seen and unseen, to be here in this conversation now. And it's just been a genuine gift and delight to be with you. And I genuinely hope that it's useful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I am confident that our conversation will be useful for so many, just so many gems and so many gifts and so many very tangible, simple practices. And I really want to just appreciate you and thank you for that, of making what could be very out there or hard to grasp or hard to take just the next step
Yeah.
into shifting things. You really have this beautiful, amazing way of going, just this, just soften your
Right.
lips, just soften your lips. Try that. Just look in the mirror at your eyes for radiance. Just try that. Like, it's just so
Yeah.
beautiful how you've done
Because
that.
it's living it, isn't it? That's why we're here.
It- yeah,
It's about living it. It's about landing it in the body.
that's it. That's it.
Mm.
Um, I would love for you to share where everyone can find you for more, what you maybe have coming up, or just anything that you feel to share where people can find more
Sure.
Lisa, more magic.
Well, they can find me at lisapage.com. So that's Page as in paper.
And
So
we'll put links too
lisapage.com.
below
Yeah.
everything for anyone who wants.
So yeah, everything is there. My main work at the moment is my partner and I work with couples, and I work one-on-one mentoring, and I have a beautiful community called Embody She, which is a group program, an ongoing group program, which is by application only, and it's I have women in there who have worked with me for over a decade, and some of them are brand new, and it's just a really beautiful space. It's where I pour all of my trainings into. So I think there's over 100 hours of video and audio trainings, and I meet with them twice a month. We're teaching a virtual retreat, which is all embodiment practice, and then a Q&A, and we have a community forum, and I'm in there to answer every question. So it's I like intimate containers where we can go deep, and it really is that. It's just a beautiful sanctuary for women where we can explore spirit, sex, intimacy, leadership, just living, loving, giving, being, giving your deepest gifts, whether it be to your family, to your intimate partner, to your work, your creativity. So it's all poured into that place. And yeah, I feel deeply blessed. I feel like I just work with the most wonderful women and couples on the planet. So yeah, so they're my main offerings at the moment.
Well, thank you for that. And we'll
Mm,
again put links and everything below.
sure.
Are there any words that you would love to leave us with?
Mm. It's only a breath away. Yeah, that that which you intuit, the more, the fuller expression, that which you wish to, that yearning, right? That yearning that you have in your life or in your intimacy, it really is only a breath away. I I have studied traditions for decades now. I've taught yoga and meditation and now the work around sacred intimacy, and and I've interpreted and read sacred scriptures, and it really is only a breath away. You are it. That which you intuit is possible because you are it. And really, there's nowhere to get to. And so that the efforting you can let go of, it really is just about being. And I know that it sounds too simple to be true, but that's it. Breath is articulated spirit, if you will, and sound is articulated breath, and words is articulated sound, and sentences is articulated word. But if you pare it back, if you're having trouble expressing how you feel, just set your breath free. If you're feeling compressed in how you feel, just set your breath free. If you're feeling afraid, set your breath free. Like that would be it, because within that breath, the essence of who you are exists, and you are it.
Lisa, thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone listening, making this possible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, and to your beautiful community. I appreciate it.
Oh, wow. We will talk soon.
Absolutely.